What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of B is for Build. We are on the last few days before we gotta go dyno this car. So we gotta do everything that we need to do to get this engine and car prepped for that. In the last episode, we took it on a shakedown drive and we found some flaws. Serpentine belts, toes, a bunch of other problems are going on, and we need a little bit more information coming from the engine. At least I feel like that. So I've got a list to go through. We're gonna do everything that we need to do to get this car ready for the dyno. Stay tuned. For this episode, since there is so much stuff to do, I went ahead and made a list. Here's our list. Most of it is required for us to go to the dyno. Some of this is optional, and I hope that we get to the optional stuff. First thing on the list is the serpentine belt. While we were driving, I came back and I realized the serpentine belt had basically disintegrated. It was eating itself. I'm hoping that it was just that the belt is dry rotted. I didn't see anything that was like fouling the belt or getting in the way of it. I'm hoping it was just dry rotted. So let's go ahead and change that first. This is a really easy change. You just basically put a wrench on the tensioner, move that tensioner down to release some of the tension, and then swap the belt. Alright, the belt was super easy to do, but the rest of the supporting mods, like for the 2JZ, like putting in the support bracket, I had to remove it to get the belt out. I don't know, a bunch of messy stuff. That was a little bit trickier. So, but anyways, new belt is on there and all good. Let's look at the list, see what's next. Next step is to install a wideband O2 sensor. For those of you that aren't familiar, it measures the air-fuel ratio in your car to see how your car is burning up that gasoline. And they're really good to have in turbocharged vehicles because when you start to push it to the limit, you're either going to not have enough air or not have enough fuel. And that's what we got to figure out. So we have to have one of those before we jump on the dyno to push it to the limit safely. Now, unfortunately, all the auto parts stores around here don't even carry them, but I got an idea where I can find one. Ta-da! The Death Trap G35. Hasn't been used in a while. It happens to have a wideband on it and a wideband gauge, and it's time to steal those two things to be used for a better purpose. Also, before you comment, I don't know what I'm doing with this car. I guess if anybody wants to buy this thing and we'll put it to good use, better than me collecting tree debris, shoot me an email. I might sell it. All right, I got almost all the essentials. We're gonna need to buy a O2 bung to weld into our exhaust, but it all looks good. Got some pretty extreme labeling on the back here. Wideband as fuck. I don't know if that's necessary. Anyways, I gotta take a quick trip down to the auto parts store to get that bung, and then we can start welding it into our exhaust. Just got back from the store. I got my O2 bung. I had to travel very far to get this, but I've got it now. So next step is you wanna go ahead and find a nice place on your exhaust where you want to put this. I'm going to put it very close to the O2 sensor that was came with the car OEM, but I'm going to put it in the downpipe itself. So you go ahead and slap this on the side somewhere where you know you can get a wrench, trace around so you know where your hole is going to be, and then pull the exhaust off, move it over the bench, and we'll weld it up. Alright, here is our downpipe with the new O2 bung installed in it. You can see the O2 sensor just drops right in there and then screws in. So I think I'm actually going to screw this in and tighten it down nice and good, and then I'm going to actually install this piece, the downpipe, back on the car with this screwed in there. That way I don't have to do it all through the engine bay. I can access it through the engine bay. You obviously have to be able to do that, but it'll be easier that way. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that on the car, and then we'll work on sending the wires from here around through the engine bay and into the dash. There's the new wideband sensor that runs up and it runs up and then back there over that, running along that wall right there, then drops down and in. And then into this big wiring mess, which actually isn't really that daunting. And this is the control unit for it. We have to calibrate that when we get it installed. So I don't have a spot to zip tie another gauge. I'm still worried about time, about getting this car to the dyno on time. So I'm not gonna do the full tidy up and installation of everything, especially because I'd like to add another gauge. But I do want to try and get some progress done on this gauge pod, just so I have a place to put both of these. So I'm gonna try and do a quick and dirty installation of this gauge pod, but no wire cleanup. Okay, well I realize it's really hard to see, but that's our gauge pod right there. And let's go ahead and test it on. So when I turn the car on, it's not turning on. We're gonna need to find the keys, guys. That's an important part of any build, car keys. All right, let's go ahead and turn this car on and see if these work. Hey, cool. That's a cool gauge. I've never seen that work. So I gotta go ahead and calibrate the wideband and then it'll be ready to roll. All right, wideband calibration was super easy. Just press of a button and it's done. So I'm super stoked. I'm glad that worked. I don't know if you guys know that, but they never worked in the other car because the previous owner had unplugged them, but I didn't know what that meant. There's obviously a lot of wires that go into all that stuff, and even when I was down there, I didn't see where they were unplugged or plugged in or anything like that. So anyways, I'm happy that that's in the car and that's working. I think the last gauge that I would like to put in that gauge pod is gonna be engine temperature, and we'll see if we can get that done in time. I doubt it, but there's a spot for it right here, but it's just hard to find a gauge small enough to go in there. It's kind of a cool thing though. If you're doing an engine swap, you know, you can run a lot of standalone gauges so you don't have to run that iPad or the tablet all the time. I like the analog gauges. They're kind of cool. So it's an option, and it saves some pretty serious time and money. A lot of people sent me this this wiring harness link a long time ago, and it was you know, it's like, oh, plug and play, and you plug it into your 2JZ, and then all your gauges in your car will work like normal. That wiring harness cost, I think it was either $5,000 or $8,000. So it's between double and triple the cost of the engine itself, and it's way over all the money I've spent completely together on this is not even close to even $5,000. So to do that just to get a bunch of gauges, it's like, come on, guys, we can figure this stuff out. So I'm trying to show you guys the way of like a little bit of grassroots way of getting this together, and it doesn't look too dirty or unclean or crazy. You know, it's not like. Anyways, moving on. We got our list here. We got 2 things done, and we're over halfway through running out of time. So hopefully we'll get through some of these things a little bit quicker. Next job is a dirty one. I gotta go ahead and fix that oil, meaning I gotta have to take the oil filter off, which I don't know how much oil is gonna dump on my head when I do that. Not looking forward to that. I'm gonna take the oil filter off, take the oil sandwich off, and then put the oil filter back on the car. Just go straight to an oil filter. We're not gonna do that sandwich adapter yet. Transmission needs more fluid, so we're gonna go ahead and top off the transmission fluid and hopefully not get tricked on transmission fluid levels once again. Let's do it. Well, kind of funny story with the oil filter sandwich adapter thing. I installed it upside down. See, one side has a bunch of O-rings so it can seal up to the block, and the other side has a flat surface so the oil filter that has its own O-rings can seal up to that. I went O-ring to O-ring, so the top thing had no sealer, and that's why it leaked out. I had a feeling that might have been a possibility. So I flipped it around and I reinstalled it correctly, and I want to try it again because the engineering on that thing is so simple. The odds of it failing, I think, are pretty slim. At least to that extent. And we topped off the transmission fluid, topped off the oil, we're good to go there. Next thing that I'm gonna go ahead and do is, I don't know if I showed you guys this, but let me show you this picture from my driveway. That's what happened when I tried to drive out of the driveway. So this car is a little bit too low, the exhaust is hanging too low, and it's rubbing on the back wheels, the back over fenders are rubbing, as well as obviously the exhaust is scraping in different places. So I'm gonna go ahead and raise up the rear of the car about an inch, in the front of the car about a ½ inch, and then we can bring it back down as we see fit later on, but just to get to the dyno and get everything taken care of, just gonna raise it up extra. That's a little bit higher. It's too much higher, which is kind of what I knew was going to happen. So we raised it up a full inch in the back, and that gave us plenty of room for clearance, but it's not tucked or anything. So we will fine tune that later on. But for now, it's going to be great to get us to the dyno session. So that's good. Next thing that we're going to go ahead and do is we need to hack the ECU. Let me grab the little dealie that we're going to do it with, and I'll show you what's going on. Next thing that we need to install is this little chip right here. Quite spendy little guy, it's several $100s. It's a boost cut controller. What this does is this runs inline. It takes the boost sensor reading going to the ECU, and it runs inline of that and interrupts it. What this does basically is that the Toyota 2JZ ECU, the stock ECU that we're running, has a failsafe at 15 PSI. It'll start to do things to the engine to limit it going over 15 PSI of boost. We want to get over that, but not much over it. But we do want to get over it, so you have to use a boost cut controller. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this in line, and that will trick the ECU into thinking that after we get to 15 pounds of boost, we can go over it, and it's going to trick the ECU into thinking that we are still at it and allow us to get more horsepower. After you install something like this and you have better exhaust, you have better air intake, better fuel pump and stuff like that, you can get bigger horsepower numbers out of these engines. The next thing that's limiting us then is the turbochargers. They're ceramic blade turbos. They can grenade and kill everything in the car. And then the next thing that's limiting us is probably the injectors. So you can see the kind of like steps of upgrades. I talked about this a long time ago. A lot of comments about the automatic transmission. I talked about this a long time ago. I'm doing this in steps. So it's like first step, cheapest way to try and get a lot of horsepower. Then we're gonna do the next step would be probably upgrade those other things that I talked about, turbo, injectors, blah, blah, blah. And then we could do the transmission, clutch, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, let's get this bad boy in there and double check the car still works. All right, I actually did a lot of reading before I installed this thing, and there's a little bit of discussions going back and forth with the Aristo ECUs and these boost cut controllers, but I figured let's go ahead and just give it a try. So it's all wired in there. The only way to test if it's gonna work is to go ahead and turn the car on. Let's give it a shot. The exhaust is disconnected if you guys are wondering why it's a little bit louder, but it's running great. I actually was able this time to verify that the wideband is operating correctly and give me great readings. The car is holding really good air-fuel ratio numbers, and it sounds good. From what I've heard, basically, if you plug one of those things in and it's really not gonna work, your car will just run like complete garbage, where the car was running great. So calling that a win, it's time to move on to the next thing. Next thing, we're gonna go ahead and install the front bumper, the fenders, and the headlights, just so on the way home tonight I'll have some signalage and some other stuff, and hopefully try and make this car look less insane, so we're not a cop magnet on the way to the dyno. I haven't installed any of this stuff since all the engine modifications, so this is a big fingers crossed moment that everything fits. Well, ran into a bit of a problem. The headlight won't fit with the intercooler piping there, but I've test fit this before with the intercooler piping there, so I don't know what's changed. But I'm gonna go ahead and start taking apart the intercooler piping and tinkering with that and try and make room for the headlight to get back in the car. With a little minimal movement of those different intercooler pipes on both sides, I was able to get the headlights in there and bolt them on. So fenders and headlights are bolted in there all the way. The bumper is only lightly bolted in here using a couple bolts. In case we have any boost leaks or anything, we need to look at the intercooler piping. We'll pop that off real quick. I tested the headlights, they work. We don't have much wheel clearance here, so I may go ahead and install some different wheel spacers. I'm gonna lower the car down, test it out, but I might install some different wheel spacers that'll snug it in about 15 more millimeters. Next thing that I'm gonna jump into is the exhaust. We're gonna go ahead and, in the long run, I've decided that I'm gonna do straight pipes. Commenter tipped me off on the idea. Obviously it's kind of, yeah, anyways, I decided I want to do that. So what we're going to do is when I go to the dyno, I want to emulate straight pipes. So I don't want to have this muffler right here. So what we're going to do is that's still got to be bolted up. So downpipe, mid-pipe going to stay there. Resonator's going to stay there. We're going to come up to these Y pipes, and then we're going to unbolt the muffler from there, and we're going to uninstall all this muffler and everything. So the exhaust will end at these Y pipes. That'll emulate a very, very low resistance system for this exhaust while we test on the dyno. These turbos have a problem with over boosting sometimes. The wastegate can't open large enough to let out enough boost, and they over boost. So we need to emulate the long-term exhaust system, which is similar to this, 2.5 inches, and then the Y pipe to 2 different 2s will be fine. So that's the plan. All right, got the exhaust installed. Well, not really installed. I got some of the exhaust uninstalled and the rest of the exhaust buttoned up. The last thing I want to do, I'm really running out of time here before I want to drive home during sunlight, and I've got about 30 minutes of that left. So got to hit the road very soon. The last thing I want to try and do though is install a tachometer. I have just a generic one here made by Bosch, and I want to see if I can get it working in the car real fast. So I got the wires on the igniter visible. I'm going to tap into the one that I think is the right one, and we'll see if it works. Tach is installed. If anybody's wondering how to do that with just a generic tach, you find your igniter, little coil guy. Hang on, I think you can kind of see it down there. That's what it looks like down there. And a bunch of wires run off of that, and you're gonna tap into the smaller black one. There's 2 pure black wires, the smaller black one. So that's like your ignition igniter little thing. Anybody that's installed one of these engines will know about it. And then obviously just doing temporary gauges still. So I threw it right here. It's connected to the blinker. Awesome. Let's get this car out of the shop. Just got done with my first drive ever. We're at a gas station. Chelsea's filling up real quick. Let's check out the car. Looks good. We got 2 headlights. That's a good start. The belt is not eating itself. That's good. I cannot see if we're leaking oil anymore. No, we're not leaking oil anymore. Damn. I'm going to clean up that windshield real quick, and then we'll get back on the road. I'm not 100% positive, but I think I heard a backfire, which is pretty exciting. My hands are like shaky. It's always really nerve-wracking driving a car for the first time, but this is very, very exciting. Temps look good, car looks good, tach's working. I'm excited. Next stop is the freeway though, so we're going up to speed. All right, we're getting close to home. Some of you guys have been watching before know that there is one tunnel between my place, my shop, and home, and my rearview mirror just fell off, and I'm gonna blast this tunnel. Here we go. Oh my God, this car is insane. Woo! I don't know what just happened. I smell, I don't know if I don't know. Something smoking, not the engine. I don't know, I can smell smoke. I might have, no, that couldn't have been a rolling burnout, but this car's really fast. It's really fast. All right, I'm gonna get home safe. All right, guys, I just made it home in a flurry of turbo spool sounds and blow-off valve sounds. I'm so happy with the way that this it's not done yet, but just the stage that I just got to with driving this car for the first time, driving it home. The only thing that broke is the rearview mirror. Once we hit boost, rearview mirror fell off. Insert when boost kicks in memes. Yeah, so I got to figure out how to get that rearview mirror back on. And everything else seemed to be good. Temps are holding good. Air fuel ratio is good. I wasn't able to watch the boost gauge as closely as I wanted to when we were going through that tunnel, and I really pushed on it. Also, I smelled some smoke somewhere. I don't know what that was when we were going through that tunnel. I have no idea. But anyways, I'm super excited. The car held up. I'm just, man, I started this whole swap because I didn't like the stock automatic transmission with the stock Boxster engine, and I already can tell that I'm really liking this setup right here. So I'm very excited, guys. Tomorrow morning, wake up early and we hit the dyno. So please tune in for that. That's the end of this episode, but please check out the next one. Let's see what kind of power numbers this car puts down. I'm very excited to check that out. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like BS for Build, you want to help out and support, head over to our shop at bsforbuild.com. Pick up anything there. All the proceeds go towards supporting these builds, and that's it. And find us on social media. We're on all your favorite social media as BS for Build. Thanks again, guys. Please remember to like and subscribe. Peace!